Hey, I'm Josh, and time is no object.
Hey, and I am Femi, and time keeps on ticking.
Ooh, that's a good song
into the
reference.
future. All right.
Welcome back to section 2 of our discussion on In Time. This is the next part of our series where we're going to talk about our audience, which is usually where we recommend who would be a good fit for watching this movie. We usually use 3 categories: families with kids, friends, and evangelistically to spark conversations. And then we dive into some rethink questions. So these are not summary or did we understand what happened in the movie questions. These are based on the ideas that we were presented. How can we take them and potentially rethink them in our own personal lives and the world at large? So, Femi, within time of our 3 categories, who do you think this fits with the best?
Yeah, for me, I think that minus some of the sensual stuff, it could be good for some high school students, if you know them, even some middle school students, but not little kids because there is some like sensuality in it. And you could skip that and probably get away with it.
Yeah.
But it's really sort of discussion for friends because it's not a Oscar-worthy movie. It's a fun watch, but it's most valuable if you know people who are not going to contentiously have a conversation about it afterwards around the things that we don't want to fight about, which I love politics. I just don't like fighting about politics. I want to talk about purposes and perspectives and philosophies and downstream effects. Those are fine by me, but I don't want to just fight with people about politics. I think it's a waste of time. And maybe talk about people's character integrity, but I don't know all these people. So, evangelistically to spark conversations, because this movie is about money, it was a little touchy for me of like, I don't know if I would say this to somebody who's a non-believer, like watch this with a non-believer and try to pivot it to faith, unless the person I've been talking to for a really long time, just because it's such a touchy thing for so many people. But what about you?
Yeah, I would agree with the family that it could be good. I actually would say it would probably not be my recommended group, not for content's sake, but actually just theming sake. I feel like the themes and the ideas of this movie lend themselves more to friends and evangelistically. I actually think it could be an evangelistic discussion sparker, but I think it would have to be a conversation focused less on like currency and like wealth versus poverty and stuff like that. And if you leaned more into some of the questions around the value of life and like, are you using your life well? And like, what are you prioritizing? And if how do we handle inequality and stuff like that? But being aware that because it's touchy, you might want to be ready for someone to talk and to maybe get a little heated about some of the ideas of like, economic models and, stuff like that. But with that, you've got a couple questions queued up for us, but I want to actually, if it's cool, I think I have my question that I mentioned.
Yeah, go ahead.
Our first section. So like I said, and it's kind of to my takeaway that we rounded out section 1 with, which is this idea of like the movie doesn't really offer us a nuanced way to think about how to fix a broken system. So my question for you, because we are learned men of extreme understanding of economics and we would fix the world if we were in those shoes. What would be, not necessarily what would be your pitch as to what to fix, but like, what would you argue are maybe some of the things on either side, either wealthier people trying to help bring up people from a lower status or lower status people trying to communicate the struggles that they're facing to people of a higher status or more wealth? Like, what do you feel like are some of the nuances of fixing a broken system that both sides can sometimes miss?
I'm just it's like I'm jumping on people, but I think in the 40 years that I've spent thinking about this, for people who are on the lower end of the spectrum, the first thing is to think about is your integrity. Yes, you're working potentially for bad masters, But how do you make those masters successful is part of what you learn about before you become your own master, before you become your own lead. And I think about this when I think of a kid who's like really had a tough life, but doesn't want to. I'm just going to use it as an example. It's not a bad job, but working at McDonald's frying fries, right? A lot of kids complaining like, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be on the horses with the rich kids or getting to play, Winter Olympic sports and trying out for a gold medal. Why do I have to be flipping fries? It is unfair. You're absolutely right. It's unfair that opportunity was not afforded you. That could have affected you in so many other ways. At the same time, your integrity is such and needs to be such that you can still do the job of making the fries on time, keeping places clean, so that one day you can either leave that job on a good footing and people feel your absence of, man, they did a really good job there, even if we didn't give them a chance up, or they go, you know what, before this person leaves, we need to like get them up higher and higher and higher. And there's so many people. I know somebody who I went to grad school with who had to work all the jobs at McDonald's because his dad owned a bunch of them, and he wasn't ashamed of it. He had to learn just how to use it. Now, if he's really, really successful, yes, he has a really good education and went to grad school, but he still had to work all those jobs. So if he meets with this kid and the kid doesn't want to try, he's like, look, I know you don't want to try, but I had to do this, So integrity, the thing that I would say for wealthy people is like just what do you need for actual leisure? I think that the idea of leisure and entertainment, when you start to come into a lot of money, changes, and you forget that sometimes just a really good conversation with a friend can be just as valuable as going to like the most riveting game or playing, high stakes poker. Sometimes that chase shows that there is a missing element in your life. It's not that you actually want to be the best. You just want to feel something, and the riskier you play makes you feel that again. And the more raunchy you get, unfortunately, the more alive you feel, instead of just feeling alive, having a good creative conversation. So those are two things. On the opposite, I would say that poor people, like, you can remember they are valuable and their life matters, and that they are worth having a conversation with, and they're not people to skip over. And for people who are wealthy, a lot of you did work really, really hard to get where you are, and you shouldn't be ashamed of the hard work that you did, even if you had a leg up to get where you are. But those are the four things that came to mind initially. Like, you got to balance those four elements at minimum. So,
yeah.
How about
that's
you?
Great. Yeah, honestly, I would just echo what you shared. And I guess even like maybe just my own summary is I feel like it feels disheartening when we have narratives floating around which cater to whichever circle you're in. So like In Time, I feel like is a great movie. If you're on the bottom and you're like, yeah, destroy the wealthy, like bring them down to our level, like take what they have, they don't deserve it. And it's like not so fun if you are one of those people who probably is like, yeah, I like did work really hard and like I have had success and I shouldn't be ashamed of it. But I like your point. I'm going to hone in on your point about like leisure, because I feel like that's actually something that's really interesting about In Time that I really liked. Is I think one of the lines that stuck out to me is when I forgot who the rich guy's name is who gives Will his whole time, but he basically asks him, he's like, if you had as much time as I had, what would you do with it? And Will's answer is, I wouldn't stare at the clock. And I was like, ooh, like I like that. I don't think that's verbatim, but just that idea of worrying about how much you have, and that you're constantly having to have this like stress of like, okay, I got to like make it to the next thing. And, this like the statistics of the US that the dominant number of families are living paycheck to paycheck and stuff like that. Like that's tough. And so, yeah, I feel like just for kind of to my original answer, and like I said, section 1 of just, I think everyone having a little bit more humility across the board that, you know, could I forego a vacation if I was in the multi-million-dollar class to invest in something else or someone else? And if I'm on a level of life that needs some support, like, who am I surrounding myself with to kind of help bring me up? And like, maybe are there things, despite the frustration and the exhaustion of the situation, to help me get a little bit of progress forward and stuff like that? So
yeah, I think that the movie that comes to mind of this that I probably won't watch again because it gave me a lot of anxiety is The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, which is
I haven't seen that one, actually.
It's not a fully accurate picture, but there was a guy named Chris Gardner who was just really, really down on his luck, had a really I think tumultuous relationship and child, and was like at one point trying to make up games with his kid as they were sleeping in the subway. But was really, really smart and worked his way up to to a trading floor, and like not well dressed, but became an adult intern, learned the stuff, was really good, got hired, and super, super strong success story in real life. And Will Smith portrays him in the movie of his life. And I think Will Smith does a good job acting in the movie as well. But the United States is great for that opportunity, you know, like to be able to work your way that hard. But like a lot of people just don't believe that they have that access. And sometimes it's holding people back. And so like in terms of narratives, another one that's really important is when your friend is succeeding without you, don't try to make them feel guilty. Tell them that you miss their friendship, but don't make them feel guilty for trying to move forward.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a good point.
Hey,
I like that.
You know, like in the gym, I think that happens for people of somebody who just has more time or dedicates more time into working out. And somebody else is like, hey man, like I got this funeral and I got injured here and I had this and I just can't be in the gym as much as you. But it feels like you're just like not talking to me. Like you're just honing in on your chicken and broccoli and rice. And the guy's like, dude, I have a dream of becoming a world-class bodybuilder and this is all I have. Are you telling me that because me chasing that makes you feel bad, I'm the bad person? You know? And we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't say if people are chasing a dream that they're bad. We should say, like, is that dream worth chasing? Is their own individual question. But we shouldn't make people feel bad for trying to move forward and get ahead. And in a lot of communities that thrive on the community aspects to survive, when one person does break away, it does feel like they're abandoning the community that supported them to get to a point where they could break away. And the community should be cheering people on. So and that's hard. It's just hard, you know, like imagine you have a really, really good, strong church community and like the best, I don't know, youth group pastor ever. And kids are coming to faith over and over and over again and discipling other kids, right? And like 7 years of this. And then there's like, okay, everybody, I have this really great opportunity to move back near my hometown, to be with my family, to be near my wife's family, to like be around all these people who I grew up with and really change a city for the gospel. And it's a great opportunity. Everybody would be like, yay. And they'd be even like, oh my gosh, how much, what a sacrifice if it was less money, right?
Yeah.
But now if
I see where
like,
you're going.
If the guy's like, well, it's also for more money, people are like, oh, so you're leaving us, huh? Gonna go back home with the more money. Gotcha. Right? After all this stuff that they've poured in, it feels like you're abandoning. It's like, no. My response should be, yes, go. Do well. Remember us, but do well. And I think Paul gives an example of that in his letters, right? Of, man, guys, I wish I could see you. I know my time with you was so beautiful and so rich, but I had to go. I had to go and continue on here. It helped that Paul wasn't wealthy, but it's the same thing when he in Philemon, right? When he's writing to Philemon about Onesimus, he's just like, hey, Philemon, I know that you're doing okay. And I'm here on house arrest and I'm doing all right and I'm paying for stuff for him to not get in trouble. But like when he comes back to you, don't treat him badly. Right? Like we're doing okay. We're not going to suffer. And he has that example. As much as Philemon sounds super sarcastic, he's trying to be like, hey, dude. I'm being this sarcastic because I need you to remember that it is not our statuses that matters. It is this love that we have that needs to be really, really felt. So it's hard when it comes to inequality for the gospel to reach through all of these things. But I do believe the movie doesn't have a good example of it. Okay. I know we're like, man, I'm like, we're just John. I was like, I had some questions that I copied and pasted over here.
Yeah, dude, go for it.
How are we supposed to use our time, Josh? How are we supposed to use our time, the limited time we have on this earth?
Yeah.
Dude, and answer without using the Westminster Shorter Catechism.
Oh, boy. Well, I don't have an answer then. No, I'm kidding. So I'm actually grateful for this question right now because, so I guess to be a little personal and sharing, so last year I think I've shared on the podcast before that for most of my life, like I've struggled with different mental health stuff and swings of depression or just my mind not being as clear as I want it to be. And that's been around since I was a kid. And like, there's all this stuff. And so I finally got tested last year and was diagnosed with ADHD and some other things that kind of float under that. And what's been hard about that is, on the one hand, I'm really grateful for clarity, and it's helped me, I think, place my mind before God in just a like, okay, I need you to kind of help sort me out and, understand how you've made me and identity and stuff like that. But then on the other side, what's been tricky is some of the hallmarks of ADHD are to the time blindness joke. Like you don't really keep track of time, or the thing that I really struggle with that is hard. And I think has created a lot of guilt that I'm kind of working through is not being able to focus on what I know is a priority and feeling like there's a degree that I almost don't get to choose what to spend my time on. And that can be really hard because like when you have a question of like, how are we supposed to use our time? There's ways I want to use my time. There's ways I feel like my brain kind of drives me to want to use my time. And then there's like what God wants me to use my time with. And I think all of those three things have kind of never fully been in alignment for me. Or if they have, it's been for very short pockets in very key times of life. So I feel like when I was in high school, my senior year, that was one of the first times that I felt like I knew how to use my time. I decided not to go out for basketball because I really wanted to get my grades up and to go to UW-Madison. I think after college, that was a stretch where I was like working on the first podcast I was like really trying to work with another friend to do. And then I think when I was a teacher, like using my time and spending time to like hang out after class with students or go to events and be a chaperone and like really invest and like be present with them. And so it's hard because there's like an answer I want to give of like, how do you use your time? It's like, well, like you have to make this matrix and you gotta, and I've actually like, I have some in my notebook that you've given me where you're like, dude, you should like put all these things into priority. And I think the thing that I'm realizing in this current season of maturing and sanctification is how much not just my brain, but my soul and what I want and, what we might call the flesh is getting in the way of clearly seeing and embracing and accepting what I should be spending my time on and sacrificing the rest. And that has been a really, really hard battle in the last like year. To understand and to like have a clear answer. So that's a long-winded way to say like I don't really know. Because I feel like that's a skill as a young adult that I'm trying to kind of craft, I guess, and to maybe make some more critical decisions as I feel like I'm approaching a season of life, being in my early 30s. I feel like I'm getting closer to like, okay, you can't really keep fuffing around, you know, and like flitting about, even if that is your tendency or like what you want to do. You might have to make some sacrifices and to say no to some things that are going to be hard to say no to in the time given, you know, my cards. So yeah, all that. But how about you? Because I know from our friendship, I know you are a more pragmatic individual.
Well, the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. So that's how we're supposed to use our
That's
time.
the right answer. You said I couldn't say that answer, basically.
Yeah, I just wanted to save it for myself. I think that the I mean, how many other things we say? He has shown you a mortal way to live, but to love justice, seek justice, love mercy.
Yep.
Walk humbly with your God.
Yeah.
You like love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, soul, strength. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added in you. Have the fruit of the Spirit. It is for freedom that you've been set free. Like, what is this freedom for? So I think that the Bible is so open to how you can interpret those things being done, but they're all directed towards like, is your life pointing towards your maker? And to your point, it's hard because we have all these human desires, either that we've been introduced to or that our temperaments are meant towards. And sometimes our psychology and our brain chemistry that is God-given works against us into prioritizing, and Satan wants to use to twist against us. I think that that's where, to use like ancient monastic type things, like these prayer circles and these rituals and the church calendar really help organize your thoughts, and doing the same thing every Sunday, doing the same thing every Wednesday, doing the same thing day in, day out, or secularly people doing these morning routines and these nighttime routines. They're to just try to get some type of balance towards a goal. So one person who I'd love to get on the pod in the future would be a guy named Reagan Rose, who has Redeeming Productivity. Because I've just sort of found him recently and been like, oh, he is using sort of productivity language, which people love, but really thinking about it from a Christian perspective of what do you build your life to have? Well done, good and faithful servant. Like, be the thing you hear. And that's what our goal is. That's how we're supposed to be using our time. The practical things, serving others, loving others, caring for others, worshiping God, praising God, reflecting on God, apologizing to God and repenting from our sin. Those are huge factors. When it comes to how many of those are financially viable ways to make a living, there's not many of them. So
frustratingly low.
If he also says in serving others, like serve your boss well. Try to make sure, and I'm trying to do a better job even now, like make my boss look good. Make the people I'm working with look good. Make the people who I'm serving look like they're serving well as well. Is a service to God and a service to them. As long as I'm in a relatively ethical industry. But that's, I think, some of what you do and how you focus. And then with your family, and this becomes much, much harder with a family and with a family that grows, like this idea of what do I need to do for my kids? What's efficient? And so I would suggest anybody take time, not necessarily just prioritize the things that you like in life, like Josh and I have talked about in the past, but look at 168 hours in a week. Look how much time you spend on what. Check your phone and your computer for how much time you're on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. It'll surprise you how much of your hours after like 10 p.m. you might be on a thing. And so you like, that is the time and the effort where it takes into, okay, I know I have this bent and I know I want to spend more time with this person, but I have to go to bed. Or I know I want to play this game, but I have this Bible study that I have to be at in the morning. And prioritizing our life around those activities, is hard. I'm still doing it and learning it. But I think that especially for couples who I know and for individuals I know who are really disciplined around that life, it feels like they actually have more freedom than people who don't have schedules. When you know, like, hey guys, I gotta go because I have this hour thing that I gotta do. Or I know it takes me 20 minutes to get home. I cannot talk for 20 more minutes. I told my wife I'd be home, or I told my mom I'd call her, and I need to be in a place to call her and sit and not be distracted. I need to move away from this room because I see the dishes and laundry, and I'm going to do dishes or laundry instead of doing anything I'm supposed to do. Like those little things start to add up into, oh, this person looks like they have a lot of focus. And the person might not be very focused at all and prioritize. But I think that's how God wants us to spend our life, is like, I want it to look effortless because you put the time in submitting all of these things that you think you'd never get to me and ordering around my stuff. And you put me first. And now I'm going to be able to bless you in those things and either getting the rewards of the fruit of these things, seeing the fruit of these things, or them opening up into a way where you actually get to do the thing you want to do more accurately because you're already wanting to serve people. And that's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
You don't have a grocery store to be rich. You have a grocery store because you want people to eat. You don't have rental properties to be rich. You have rental properties because you want people to have a place to live. You don't have a brokerage because you want to get rich. You have a brokerage because you want to give people a good way to, like, your purpose matters, right? Like that's how you serve and that's how you love. So
yeah.
I don't know what that looks like for everybody, and I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like for my little family, for us to all sort of be bent in that way. But we have to sort of do it together. And then by doing that and loving each other well, hopefully people will go, oh, yeah, that's very... How can they do that? They're all 5 so different people. Like,
yeah,
what is going on? How does this work? And we're like, it's because of the blood of Jesus. Like,
yeah,
that's the only reason.
Not my red light routine, not my multivitamins. Yeah,
it's totally. Like, why do you stretch? Why do you work out? It's like, because you're trying to get a 6-pack? No, it's just because I need to be healthy enough to help my friend move when they ask me.
Yeah,
like that's it. Like,
yeah. Well, and to what you're saying, I think this is something with the idea of time in this movie that, again, is, I think, interesting, is it's all operating from a concept of scarcity, right? Like that's right. Kind of the whole analogy, is time is a scarce resource. And in the Christian life, time in a certain perspective is not a finite resource. It's an infinite resource. But the conceptual ability for us to imagine what time after our physical life and our physical bodies is going to look like, I think is frighteningly unclear. And I think that can cause us to have a little bit of, allow for more FOMO to seep into our souls than I think we should allow. Because even, like, I'm saying that as a challenge to myself, where I was like, man, so for me, like I was saying, I have all these different things I'm trying to do and blah, 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 and having trouble focusing. And there's part of me where I'm like, I've had the thought to try this, but to actually play with the idea and pray with God about, like, okay, dude, I'm really freaking out about this idea of, like, I would love to just make music and make art and write stories and do all these things, and for those to be like be for something. And it feels like I can only do that right now in this life. And so the idea of not doing one of them literally feels like a death in a certain way, because it's not that I want to write music and make music to make $1 million. It's because I want to feel the expression and the joy of learning how God designed notes to fit together, and then to use those to say something meaningful and whatever, like you said, to the worship of our Creator. And I've never thought about actually taking the time or putting in the discipline to consistently, maybe for multiple days, weeks, months, pray, like, may this be something I can do in eternity, right? Or like just like we don't really talk like that as Christians about certain things that we're experiencing, or want to experience on this side of existence. And I wonder if that's actually something that we could do and encourage each other with, that could be transformative, is like, yeah, the idea of having a perfect, ripped Marvel body. Movie ready body is an awesome idea. I would love that. If I could trade $1 million, if I had $1 million and I could trade $1 million for that, I would I would do it without thinking. Also, I am promised that this body is going to die and it is going to wither no matter how many nutritionists and how much money I spend. And I'm promised a new body that will come. So is that maybe something that I pursue up until a point to be healthy, like you said, and to be ready and to steward the life that God may be calling me to live in terms of traveling to be an evangelist or to be a dad or to be a even a laborer, right? Like a literal physical laborer in some way. So
yeah, I think I do want to get to the theology point and like some of the scriptures that we thought of. The last thing I'll say with the rethink and with this topic of like how we're using our time is revolution does not solve the problem, although that's what the movie sort of was bending towards, because now you have a broken system that you have to try to rebuild, and there's no structure there. And if you'll notice that even in the growth of the church, there was no big, hey, let's have a huge uprising. Although some people today think that would be okay. Let's have this big uprising. It's like, well, if you do that, what happens is there's no structure now underneath you. There's just a lot of people who now have these redistributed resources, and you don't understand like what the purpose of them is and how they are to be used together. And so you'll see that the early church served in a way that was threatening, and is threatening still today because it doesn't have money or power as the goal. It just has the gospel of Christ. And so notice that as a difference, is a very big difference between what Christian social justice activists want. They don't want to just have a complete tear down of the system. And Christian conservatives, real Christian conservatives, don't want to just have a redistribution. They want to have a pricking of the hearts of their peers and going, hey, we need to think about this differently. And those are much less revolutionary, but they truly are the foundation of like a culture change where the old joke is everybody in heaven, everybody in hell has 3 feet forks and 3 foot spoons. Everybody in hell is hungry and everybody in heaven was well fed. And it's why. It's like everybody in heaven fed each other and everybody in hell tried to feed themselves and they couldn't reach. Like that type of what's the culture change, you know? What's the culture change? So I just wanted to add that anti-revolution point. That is not necessarily the point of revolution. There are points for it. I'm not a philosophy or history professor that I want to get into all those details, but I wanted to hit that on the rethink too.
And I will add in maybe one last thought, if that's cool. Because to that point, I've been thinking that the whole time, because that idea of revolution is really fascinating to me, because we're literally in a country that was built by a revolution. Yeah. And I think for my Christians out there, it is interesting for us to think about the story of Christ, that the reason the Jews did not like him is because he was not this violent revolution person that they thought he was going to be. Yet he did wage a revolution. It is just an ongoing, slow, suffering revolution. And I think we love the in-time kind of sexy revolution that just happens overnight, and it's got everybody in their, their fancy petticoats shaking in their fancy boots versus the kind of revolution where we might only be a blip on the progress bar, but but that's it, right? And I think like to the idea of eternity, and I think even to challenge potentially fellow brothers and sisters in the faith who are leaning towards that, like, well, Jesus coming back any day now, maybe not. And if it's maybe not, you don't know how much time there is to go on the clock. And so how are you being sacrificial and letting go of the idolatry to this whole idea of time? Are you letting go of the idolatry of time that maybe you are not at the end game and maybe there is much more time to go, and you are actually wasting your witness because you're so focused on the fear of the moment and not being a part of the long-suffering revolution of Christ. So,
yeah, I'm not gonna add any more because what to say?
Yeah.
All right. Peace.